Good afternoon. I'm David Kleeman. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Trends from Dubit, the Leeds-based research and strategy consultancy and digital studio. I want to start this afternoon with a big thanks to all of the CMC patron sponsors who have backed this regular program of content that we're offering. They're on your screen right now: BBC Children's, CITV, Daryl McQueen, NBC Universal, and the Elf Factory. And this time, a special thank you to London-based BAFTA and Emmy award-winning animation studio Carrot, who have sponsored this specific webinar. This is the third in the series of CMC Friday fortnightly webinars, and here come the next two. On the 29th of May, there's going to be a conversation with the BBC's Cheryl Taylor. In a time of unprecedented strain on broadcasters and producers, presenters, or pressures on public service, and a new director of BBC Children's on the way. And then on the 12th of June, we're going to be hearing two research perspectives on what the SVODs, including Apple Plus, or Apple TV, Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon, have been doing and what they're planning to do, with some invaluable information for producers who are looking to support their own content ideas. Today's event, by the way, can be found along with all the previous Friday sessions on the CMC YouTube channel, where you can also see an archive of the CMC keynotes, changemakers, masterclasses, and so on. Today's session was produced and executive produced by Lauren and Juliet, who both work for Plug-in Media in Brighton. Juliet is a longstanding member of the CMC Advisory Committee. Please post your questions. We will take questions at the end, and please post them using the Q&A button at the bottom. Don't send questions via the Zoom email facility, even though Zoom is going to try to insist that this is what they use for questions. No one's reading those. So the Q&A button at the bottom works, and we will get to as many of your questions as we can, either during the live event or answering privately by return text, or we're actually going to try a little chat at the very end after all the video is shut off. So also don't dash away toward the end of the session, because as with all the CMC webinars, there's bonus content at the end. We've got the return of the ever popular CMC changemakers, young people who have something to say. Today's are related to our main topic of corona-related content, as they are both BAFTA Kids presenters, and they've been asked to reflect on their media activity during their lockdown. So on to the main part of our webinar today. If you saw the CMC research webinar a few weeks ago, you would have seen the teenager's quote that we used, saying, I'm done with YouTube, when does the next season start? A survey released this week of children in Canada found that 71% confessed to feeling boredom, and my guess is that the other 29% were lying. As any parent knows, boredom is the twin sibling to trouble. So in an effort to keep kids from cutting their own hair or disassembling the family computer, time spent with media is way up, and family rules on media use are pretty much out the window. This then is where the symbiotic dance between children's media makers and our audiences comes into very sharp focus. We need children to keep engaged with our stories, our games, our images, our vlogs, and kids want us to keep the new content flowing. Further, we have a social responsibility to make positive use of the trust that young people are investing in us during this time to help them understand what's going on around them. Our ingenuity is challenged at the same time because so many of our usual tools are sidelined or altered. But around the world, many have risen to the occasion, and that's what we're here to discuss today. We're going to have three presentations. I'm going to talk about video and TV during a time of COVID. Then we also have one on social influencers, or social media and influencers work under quarantine, and another on digital trends. Obviously, in all these, there are far more examples than we can share today, so we've created a public document with additional examples, and that will be shared for download on the CMC website. I'm going to begin with examples of COVID-related video and television. Between Dubit and my work with the International Children's TV Festival, the Prix Jeunesse, I've traveled to 6 continents seeking quality and innovation in kids media. You may have attended my Prix Jeunesse sessions at the CMC, and I'm going to try to do something similar today. I'm going to talk less, I'm going to show more. So not a lot of analysis, but mostly just giving you things to look at. And I've got my clips organized into 6 ways that the industry has responded to the pandemic with unique content. By the way, I've received so many recommendations, but I could only use a small selection today. So please accept my apologies, those of you who sent me material and whose content doesn't appear on screen. Very much appreciated, and you have my respect for your quick response to kids' needs. And also for those whose content is included, I apologize for excerpting partial clips. I know it does violence to your work, but I wanted to show as much as possible. It is indeed a very strange time. Even the Fraggles are using their doozer tubes to video conference. This still is from the Fraggle Rock Rock-On shorts that were shot on iPhones for use on Apple TV+. More than any other category, producers have been making shorts and public service announcements to help kids understand what's asked of them. Stay home, stay distanced, wash your hands. Here are 3 excerpts: Wazzy's Wonderful World from South Africa, Tea and Mo from the UK, and Monsters Hygiene from Canada.
Hello friends, it's Wazzy here. Do you know why we need to stay at home right now? There's a new virus in town that's making everyone sick. It can make you a little bit sick or very sick. To make sure less people get the virus, we all need to stay at home. If we all stay in our homes, then the virus can't spread. So stay home and stay safe. See you later.
Read a book. Learn to cook. Paint your face. Or go to outer space.
The next category of content is content made by children and youth. I've chosen 2 clips, one from Colombia and one from Iran, that are drawn from the worldwide #QuarantineLife YouTube channel that was created by longtime children's media makers Jan Willem Bolt and Aldana from Holland and Aldana Duhalde from Argentina.
Hoy traje unas poesías que hice hace algunas horas y las quería compartir con ustedes, que esta es sobre el coronavirus. Esta pandemia nos hace entender que algunos vivimos felices y otros no tienen que comer. Si salimos y nos infectamos, nos podemos morir. En esta cuarentena no hay a dónde ir. Algunos perdieron su trabajo, pero en Colombia siempre ha habido gente abajo. Espero que el coronavirus se acabe ahora y que todos mejoren sin demora. Que vivamos felices con todos los animales y hasta con las lombrices.
Hello, I'm Roshana. I'm 9 from Iran. I have made a short animation about coronavirus in quarantine. Being saved from COVID-19. A film by Roshana and Mama Azi, done in quarantine. Hop, 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 hop. 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 Hop, 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 hop
Doop, doop, doop.
La 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 la. Hey! Hey!
Ongoing children's news programs around the world have had to figure out how to explain COVID-19 and all the stories that revolve around it to their young audiences. I've been assuming that because you all have access there in the UK to News Round on the BBC, I haven't included a clip, but obviously they've been on top of this story from the start and innovating ways to report while at distance. What I've chosen to show you today are clips from ZDF's long-running news program Logo, and this clip is about fake news, about news literacy, and also one from the global cooperative Wadada News for Kids, from their local production in Nepal about returning to school.
Lisa bekommt ein Video von ihrer Freundin geschickt. Der Titel lautet »Die große Corona-Lüge. Du wirst es nicht glauben. Unbedingt teilen.« Erstens checkt Lisa die Quelle, also woher das Video ursprünglich stammt. Es wurde von einer Person hochgeladen, von der Lisa noch nie gehört hat. Das könnte auf ein Fake, also eine Falschmeldung hindeuten, weil die Person vielleicht keine vertrauenswürdige Quelle ist. Vertrauenswürdige Quellen sind zum Beispiel bestimmte Nachrichtenseiten oder öffentliche Behörden, wie die Polizei oder das Gesundheitsamt. Dann schaut Lisa, was genau im Titel steht. Videos, die besonders krasse Überschriften haben und behaupten, unglaubliche Sachen aufzudecken, sind oft Fakes.
बिहान विद्यालय छिर्न अघि हरेक बालबालिकाको ज्वरो जाँच्नुको साथै स्यानिटाइजर पनि लगाउन दिइन्छ। विद्यालयले मास्क पनि अनिवार्य गरेको छ। यदि बालबालिकाको तापक्रम 37.3 डिग्री फरेनहाइट भन्दा माथि भयो भने ती बालबालिकालाई विद्यालय आउन रोक लगाइन्छ। यस्ता सावधानी अपनाउँदा बालबालिकाहरूमा कोरोना भाइरसको डर।
News and other producers have ramped up quickly with timely specials for kids as well, often aimed both at children and their parents to provide age-appropriate information, context, and at some level also reassurance. Here are some clips from the USA, a CNN Sesame Workshop co-production aired on CNN, and from Sky Kids in the UK, FYI investigates Corona.
This can be a really hard time, even a scary time, and it's okay to be scared.
But when you're stuck inside, it might be hard to understand why coronavirus is so dangerous, especially if everyone in your family and your house is healthy.
There are some families, though, where people are getting very sick, and sometimes the people who got sick are no longer with us, and so their families are sad, and they're having a really tough time.
I even lost a friend. It's hard to believe, but it does make me sad.
Yeah, you know what? I know what it's like to lose a friend. Yeah, when I lost my friend, Mr. Hooper, I felt sad and confused, and I wanted to give him a picture I drew of him, but I couldn't because he died. But my adult friend, Maria, explained that Mr. Hooper wasn't going to come back. And I didn't know what to do, but luckily I had my friends and my family there to help me. And I still have my picture of Mr. Hooper right here in my nest. And that way I can think about him.
It can be really confusing, as we know, for kids to be confronted with all of these grown-up ideas and these feelings all at one time. So what do you say to the kids like Big Bird who are trying to work through them all right now?
Yeah, these could be overwhelming, and I think it's really important for us to remember to validate these feelings, because these feelings are real, and it is okay for parents to express their feelings, because once again, that helps validate the children's feelings. But keep in mind that children do need these strategies, and we're talking about what Big Bird did to help remember Mr. Hooper. And it's not like a light switch. You know, keep in mind that when children are dealing with feelings such as grief, it's sort of like when they eat an apple. So when a child eats an apple, they take a bite, they put it down, they come back to it, they take another bite. So they deal with these emotions in bite sizes, unlike we as adults who eat the apple all together. We're all consumed.
It all started when we were going back to China for Chinese New Year. We were supposed to have a happy family holiday with my Chinese grandma, uncle and auntie. But then we got news that there was a virus going on called the coronavirus. The journey home was really quite scary. I didn't really get to say a proper bye to my Chinese family. It was also a rush. We went off in the car on a 3-hour trip to Wuhan. We even passed the market where the virus first started. I got goosebumps.
We're all really scared, but actually in Wuhan. Got gloves, got masks, 2 masks on in fact. Gonna keep my hands in my pockets, not allowed to touch anything.
It was all really scary when we got to the airport. There were checkpoints all around to check our temperature. I got really scared. It was really a lot for me.
I can't move on from news without noting how many heads of state have taken time to address children's questions on TV. You wouldn't necessarily sign up some of these people as children's presenters, but it's important for families to see and hear that governments are considering the physical, mental, and emotional health of their youngest citizens. From RAI in Italy to BBC in the UK to TVO in Canada to NZTV in New Zealand, many broadcasters and streamers have either launched new educational strands or channels, expanded their hours of content on existing channels, or brought down paywalls to accommodate learning at home. I said a minute ago that you wouldn't necessarily sign on heads of state as presenters, but in a brief exchange I'm going to show you, and this is aimed at adults, not kids, between the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, and an iconic children's presenter there who's hosting a learning channel from her home. Ardern actually kind of shows some talent and some cheek.
Well, behind every good presenter is generally a massive big team. And so I'm working with a team of teachers and educationalists from around the country. Here I am in Auckland and they're in Wellington, and there's people in the far north and they're all over Hamilton, everywhere. And they're coming up with ideas. They're taking a look at what I can do with Susie's World, and then they're going, okay, what have we got tomorrow being Friday? Well, on Friday we've got popcorn. So we don't actually count popcorn, but we look at how we can work with popcorn in a maths way as well. So it's that integration between science and maths together. So they come up with some ideas. I then go, ain't got those props at home, and I adapt and find other ways of doing it.
So literally you're having to make sure that you've got, whatever you're doing has to be something you can source from home at the moment.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that's just been impossible that you've had to really...
Yeah,
creative?
Jelly beans. You just can't get jelly beans at the moment. So we had to make a graph with gummy bears instead.
Which I would say would be controversial, but I would say maybe a superior lolly. But
I don't know, you can't go past a black jelly bean. I love them.
Yeah, I feel like that is also a polarizing statement, Susie. This might be the time when we pull down that icon status. You've just...
And then finally, we've seen a number of producers who generate new genres, formats, and stories in order to be able to bring new content to kids who are locked down. Me at Home is a variety show on ABC Australia. Camp Bonkers is a creativity show done live several times a week and supplemented by content that Wind Sun Sky Entertainment happened to have ready to go as part of a broader project. And Sinking Ship Entertainment developed Locked Down at warp speed to be shot on phones at home by its teen cast, and it will debut very soon on YouTube Originals.
I am going to attempt to keep uppy this roll of lavatory paper. What a classy name. I am going to call this a success if I can manage 6 bounces. Okay, here we go. That challenge was impossible.
That didn't go very well at all, did it?
By the way, if you are concerned about me wasting toilet paper, don't worry. I'm flush. Sorry. Now, from bad one-liners to epic rhymers, we have not one, but 2 original raps from some me-at-home viewers. And these guys know how to make isolation sound good. Have a listen. They must be on the same wavelength because we were sent these 2 rap videos just days apart. Here's Tully's isolation rap.
Here I sit in the isolation trying to save the Australian nation. Stay at home with your cup of tea, do the right thing and isolate with me. Do the isolation. Do the isolation. Stuck at home on vacation, shave my head in isolation.
I'm going to start by grabbing my sheet of paper and I'm gonna draw something on it. I'm not quite sure what to draw. You guys could draw anything you want. You could draw your family, you could draw an animal, you could draw the sun, the moon, the stars, draw camp. You know what? I think I'm gonna draw a lake. I'm gonna draw a lake. And I also love going kayaking in the lake. So I'm gonna draw a kayak. And then I'm going to draw the water, obviously. Oh, and I'm also going to draw a pine tree, because whenever I think of a lake, I think of pine trees. And maybe I'll draw some birds. Maybe I'll draw some birds trying to steal someone's s'mores. That'd be funny. Okay. I think my drawing is done.
Hello out there, it's your girl Nira. Nira! Ew. Hello, it's Nira. Oh, hello there, it's Nira. N to the I, to the R, to the... Nope. Hello, Nira. It's Nira. Who am I kidding? This is just for you. I mean, me. Day 1. Today, we were told to stay home from school unless we're essential. Which I guess they think school is not. Huh. Anyway, we're locked down for like 2 weeks, which means... staycation!
Let me remind you to post your questions for the end using the Q&A button. And now I'm going to hand it over to Carlotta Merzari, the creative director and founder of Northforma Entertainment, a studio that uses data to optimize the development of programs for Gen Z. And she's going to talk about social media and influencers' work under quarantine. Carlotta.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for your segment. It was awesome. It's fantastic to see how media has the power, even in difficult times, to bring us closer together. Up next, we'll see how this happens on social media, by default, the one place where young audiences connect and share experiences. My name is Carlotta. I'm very happy to be here, and I run Northforma Entertainment, where we use data to understand young audiences' behavior online. Let me jump straight into the slides because we've got a lot to cover today. At our studio, we spend a tremendous amount of time observing the activity of young creators on social media, striving to understand how they create their own entertainment and why. Because as we all know, this generation are not just watching, but they're creating all the time. For us, analyzing their entertainment on social is an opportunity to get a glimpse of what they're looking for in entertainment, and more broadly, and perhaps if we're lucky, it can give us a glimpse of their internal worlds. So, social media during the times of COVID. Teen creators have been very prolific, content consumption on social skyrocketed, and teen influencers have been playing an important role in making the daily lives of their audiences a little more bearable. Let's start with some numbers right away. With the rise of social distancing, we also saw the rise of new ways to connect, most notably through the video chat. Kings on this consumption were YouTube and TikTok, with a staggering 51% use among 4,000 kids across the UK and the US. These are stats from a research led by Global Web Index that interviewed 4,000 teenagers. And as we can see, viewers between the ages of 12 and 20 are consuming content in these numbers. We can see that YouTube and TikTok are absolute kings. Online TV and OTT are close behind with 38%, not too far away from broadcast and linear at a 24, presumably because kids are spending more time with their families. Video games and music streaming at 31 and 28% are absolutely topping online press and radio use. So it looks like kids are trying to distract themselves or find some relief from the news. In terms of the quality of the content consumed, we can see that the psychological needs of online consumption is aiming to fulfill somewhat boredom, as mentioned by David, or anxiety in general. 52% of young users are watching funny videos, while 54% are watching memes, with a bit of a difference from the older generations. There is a general consensus, even between the youngest, that screen time use is getting a bit out of control, and kids tend to be mindful of how much they consume. What is interesting is that there is a clear need for content to have a positive impact on the psychological well-being of the viewers. So even on social media, the most consumed content provides a light-hearted distraction, or it aims to provide a supportive sense of normality. Influencers show behaviors and routine that aim to look as normal as possible, hence giving the viewer an appearance of normality and convey the idea that the disruption is a shared experience. Lifestyle influencers, most notably, continue to share videos about their daily routines, from waking up to going to bed, with the difference that this time they provide a peer-to-peer guide to navigate the difficult times. Many videos are about maintaining concentration and productivity, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and implementing new routines in the absence of classes. Education and school-focused influencers continue to provide support to their followers, but again, this time with great focus on how to maintain productivity while self-isolating, or even on how to navigate the difficult emotions that arise when missing out on the end of the year or exams. This content reveals to us that for young audiences, following someone who is authentically similar to yourself, who goes through the same emotions and difficulties as you do, and provides guidance, sometimes even as simple as just following a morning routine, providing relief or just a distraction, is essential and appreciated. In conclusion, the content remains typical of the channels that young audiences have come to know and expect. Only now, teens are turning to the online space to find a community that shares the realistic experiences of everyday quarantine life, that gives practical support, a sense of resilient normality, and let's not forget, a touch of optimism and good old fun. A fun trend that we started noticing is the increasing use of adult words that point back to the mindfulness movement. Many more young influencers nowadays use words like mindfulness, mindset, positive thinking, personal growth, inner consciousness, and similar. I would love to share a video clip, Joe, if you can play, of what this content is so you can see for yourself.
As you can probably already tell, I'm going to be filming another at-home quarantine vlog.
I'm gonna assume that most of your days have been looking something like this. If that's the case, let me offer you 10 coronavirus quarantine life hacks that will help you nullify the existentialism of knowing that the world will never be the same.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a little bit over a week since I've been in quarantine and I've done absolutely nothing productive. So today is going to be a productive day in my life as a quarantine teen.
I just kind of mindfully reflected on what I'm grateful for and what I still would like to attract into my life. I just did some rough sketches.
After that, I made a timetable for the day. If I'm going to have a productive day, I do like to make a timetable because it just holds me accountable, and especially at the moment, I think it's important to have structure because we are at home for a very long time, and this is the main thing that's helping me to stay productive.
Waiting for it to be 1 o'clock, and I'm also eating some watermelon, and this is feta cheese. So this is what our 1 p.m. activity looks like.
Nothing new from the College Board this week, but there's
I'm finally done with school. I mean, like, I still have a lot of homework to do, but...
All right. Gotta make sure I wash my hands all the time. All clean. No!
So as you can see, lots of normal activities and also some young and somewhat dark humor. I wanted to also share an example of young influencers using audience engagement to generate impact and practical support. Ellie Louise is a UK teen influencer with 401,000 followers who launched the NHS fundraising campaign live on her channel. Similarly, the gamer Jacksepticeye from Ireland hosted a 12-hour-long fundraiser and raised about $650,000 on World Health Day to support a multi-platform digital fundraiser called Hope from Home. Sean, the YouTuber with a 23 million following, raised on his channel about 40% of the global total. Let me show you a quick clip.
Hey! Saffron Barker started a hashtag, a trend, I don't even know what it is, like a campaign, which is basically the aim of it is to raise as much money as possible through being a YouTuber to help the NHS. And I think it's amazing that we're able to come together as a YouTube community and raise some money for the NHS. But thank you so much, Sonic. That is really kind of you.
Welcome everybody to the big day. We're all here finally. Welcome to our very special Happy World Health Day. By the way, today is World Health Day. That's why we are here doing this today. We are here, of course, for our COVID-19 or our coronavirus fundraiser. This is and to have $653,000 raised in this community alone absolutely blows my mind. I'm so full of joy and love for this.
To conclude, let me share our takeaways about social media content during quarantine that we found very valuable. For Generation Z, social media serves as a springboard for these young super creators to express who they are and come together in communities of shared values and interests. The involvement between creators and audiences can be so strong at times that it reaches levels of co-creation as channels and viewers interact with each other constantly. So in difficult times such as quarantine and COVID, create the opportunity for influencer audiences to connect at a deeper level, strengthening their relationship and generating proactive, practical solution to a shared problem. And finally, for all of us media makers, it's important to understand that for young audiences, honesty and openness about difficult topics wins the game. Teens in today's digital landscape are very smart and can create entertainment and relief by themselves, for themselves. They demand nothing less from other shapes of entertainment, and that is a challenge that we're all called to respond to. Thank you so much, guys. I'm done for today.
Thanks so much, Carlotta. Again, let me remind you that you can post your questions in the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to those at the end of the session. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton on to journalist and CMC advisory board member Stuart Dredge to talk about digital.
Thanks, David. I've unmuted myself as well. And yeah, grand. I am here mainly as a visual reminder that you shouldn't have spent February putting off that haircut. I did. It's not a very good idea. Right, I'm going to share my screen. I am here to talk about the more geeky side of things in terms of digital content. So here we are, digital content in the time of Corona. So I have been looking at a bunch of themes, basically stuff that's being done for kids digitally, from stories to games to tech company stuff, and then museums, print media, and mindfulness. And I want to start by talking about stories and storytelling, whether as a device to explain the pandemic to kids or to give them a way to tune out of it for a while. So you may have seen publisher Nosy Crow's free ebook recently, explaining coronavirus to primary school children. It was illustrated by Axel Scheffler of the Gruffalo fame, and it went online as a Creative Commons publication. So Nosy Crow hosted it, but it could also be elsewhere. And it's had more than 1 million reads and downloads from Nosy Crow's website alone, and heaven knows how many from elsewhere. And there was also a piece by the Children's Commissioner here, which is more of a slideshow really, saying the questions kids are asking about: what is coronavirus? How do I know if I have it? What happens next? So people are trying to answer these big questions. But actually quite a lot of stuff happening is about anything other than content about the coronavirus. So there have been a lot of things that are lean back story related. So Amazon's Audible service is usually subscription based, everything's behind its paywall, but they brought a bunch of audiobooks out in front of the paywall for kids and teens. from Harry Potter audiobooks to Winnie the Pooh, Anne of Green Gables, The Jungle Book, Grimm's Fairy Stories, and so on. Talking of Harry Potter, there's also a brand new reading of the first book in the series with actors and celebrities, including cast members from the film and stage show. The video is being made available for free on the official Wizarding World website, and the audio is exclusive to Spotify as part of its podcast push. So kids can watch on Wizarding World or they can listen on Spotify. And there have also been celebrities and authors reading stories online. So Dolly Parton's been reading bedtime stories as part of her Imagination Library initiative. So she's been long-term reading advocate for kids, and she's been settling down on the bed and reading a bedtime story. Actor Tom Hardy recorded some new CBeebies stories, which got half my Twitter timeline in quite a lather. And Michelle Obama's been reading stories too for PBS Kids in the UK. And there's a whole bunch of authors and celebrities on Facebook and Instagram who are kind of reading stories out for parents to kind of log into and let their kids watch. And there've always also been podcasts. So one thing I found interesting is this new daily podcast format. So Greg Jenner, who was a consultant on Horrible Histories for TV, he launched a homeschool history podcast, part of the BBC's educational stuff. There's also in America, there's a podcast called Two What's and a How, and these are both daily. And what I find interesting there is this attempt to create a daily lean back listening hub for kids around podcasts. And that could be something that lasts beyond the pandemic. As a personal side, I think it's been a really stressful time, obviously, for parents and kids. And it's been really interesting to see a lot of the stuff happening digitally has been not lean forward, interact necessarily, but lean back, listen, the kind of Jack and Nori style. We're going to read you a story and you can chill out. It's been really nice. But kids have been leaning forward as well and playing games. So as David mentioned, screen time rules have been ripped up across the world. I mean, in my household, they've all gone to pot. In fact, today I've had to bribe my kids not to be playing Fortnite right now as I'm speaking. So all these games that kids are playing, they're getting more time, but people are also doing stuff with games around the coronavirus. And some of this has nothing to do with kids media or coronavirus. So Travis Scott is a rapper from the US. He's really popular, but he's not a children's musician. He uses salty language. He's not targeting kids with music, but he put on the biggest digital event for kids of this whole pandemic, I think, so far. So he played a concert within the game Fortnite. So they recorded a performance from him and they turned it into an animation where like a 300-foot tall Travis was stomping around the Fortnite island. He went into space, he went into underwater, and players could follow him and watch and listen. They had this event 5 times over a weekend at different times to suit different time zones. The first of the concerts was attended by 12.3 million people. And over the 5 showings, there were 27.7 million people. And they cut the swear words, best of all, so it was safe for kids. But what's interesting is, at a time when there are really no live concerts and festivals in many countries, they've been cancelled and shut down, a lot of kids may have had their first experience of live music staring at Travis Scott looming over them in Fortnite. And that's going to have an interesting knock-on effect, I think. Another of the popular games for kids is Roblox. It now has 125 million players, and many of them are kids. And they had a virtual screening of the recent One World Together at Home concert. So that was the one that Lady Gaga curated, lots of stars performed from their homes. And it was a video streaming affair. But Roblox built a virtual venue where kids could come, put on their virtual items that were created for the event, and watch together. So it was about watching video within a virtual world where they spend time already and chatting to friends and strangers alike. What else? Games are filling the void left by the shutdown of live sport. So you can't watch the Premier League, but you can watch Premier League stars playing one another at FIFA 20, streamed online with commentary. And from NASCAR races in the US to basketball, it's happening with other sports too. We've often had this thought of like, why would anyone watch people playing computer games? And of course, actually, kids don't even have to question that, they just enjoy it. But during this pandemic, people have been watching FIFA and then going away and putting the lessons they've learned into practice. So instead of being inspired by Raheem Sterling's skills on the pitch, you're inspired by his skills on the console. A few other things, Microsoft has been extending access to the educational edition of Minecraft, including creating a remote learning toolkit with lessons to help parents use Minecraft with kids at home. Games have even been used to sort of put the government's message out there. So the Stay Home Saves Lives message has been appearing in various games. The idea being it's reaching young people, not just kids, where they're playing. I'm assuming that's changed to Stay Alert now, which is kind of ironic if you're about to crash into a tree in a rally game. And there are lots of individual stories, I think, about teachers being resourceful. So one teacher in Quebec, and we're going to have a link to this in the document afterwards, they used Assassin's Creed, which is not a kid's game. There's lots of jumping off roofs and killing people. But they used Assassin's Creed to encourage his pupils to explore ancient Athens because the game developers have recreated it in exceptional detail for the game. And the kids' trip to real Athens was cancelled, but the teacher got them to wander around this. And actually the publisher of the game has produced these free explore the area guides, and you don't have to assassinate anyone, which kind of helps. And the Monterey Bay Aquarium has been given educational tours of sea life using Animal Crossing New Horizons, the Switch game. So they're streaming their game session online, talking about the bugs, talking about the fish that you find in the game, and educating the kids who can't come to visit for real. I want to talk next about tech companies, what they've been doing, not just the big ones, but some of the smaller educational tech startups that we have here in the UK. It's a really good time for innovative startups. I'm going to breeze through. Hopst has been making home learning materials for parents to use, from colouring to maths and games. Kano, which usually sells coding kits and devices, has opened up its Kano Club website to everyone with coding tutorials. So again, a company that sells physical products is now doing more stuff online, opening that up for kids to use. Tech Will Save Us, which again makes coding kits and STEM toys. They published a free learning and playing at home guide for parents. So again, it was using some of the concepts in their toys, but how you do it at home. You can use flour, sugar to do fun things. Mrs. Wordsmith, which sells books and has an app, has been making free printables for families to download at home. And spelling service Solinkalot offer 12 weeks of free access to parents, carers and schools. What I think is interesting here is, for these startups, it can be hard reaching parents. And when they reach them, they've got to persuade them to pay. But this pandemic has provided this opportunity to actually put some free stuff out there and build a relationship with parents, build a trusted relationship of parents are at home panicking about how do I homeschool? And these companies saying, well, here's some materials to help. And it'll be interesting to see if those relationships extend beyond the current crisis, so that parents maybe say, well, I like that company, they produce nice stuff, maybe I will subscribe to the digital thing. And it's not just small tech companies. So Apple did a 30 creative activities for kids sheet. Google launched a new section of its Android app store for teacher approved apps, again, to show parents in direction of things that might help their kids to learn. YouTube has launched a Learn at Home hub, again, to help parents find educational videos and channels to help with homeschooling. The downside here has been persuading a child to look at educational videos on YouTube can be a little bit of a stretch. But there is a lot of stuff on YouTube. They've been putting a lot of effort into this in the last 2 years, and they're now curating this for parents, again, who are in this homeschooling moment. And Amazon did the same thing as its Audible sister company, Prime Video. They brought some of their content out in front of their paywall with kids' shows for free access. And again, it's just free stuff for kids to watch, but it maybe builds that relationship and shows parents what there is in the paid service. So last few things, museums, which are obviously mostly closed physically, but they're open online. And many of them are curating their existing digital content or creating new stuff for kids at home. So you can learn to make an origami T-Rex from the Natural History Museum's site as part of its Try at Home section. The Science Museum is encouraging kids to explode fizzy pop across the kitchen, which I wouldn't endorse, but again, as part of their things you can do at home. The Imperial War Museum has had its experts talking from their houses, or houseboats in this example, about some of the topics and items in the museum. So again, kids can't come and see them, but the experts can broadcast and talk about them on YouTube. And the National Video Games Museum launched an at-home section encouraging kids to make their own pixel art characters and think about designing games. So I think in a lot of cases, museums were already doing this stuff. They already had an idea of stuff to do at home on our website. But in this current crisis, and with parents scouting around for materials, they're doubling down on it and kind of helping them find their way around. And the same is true of print media. So we're lucky in the UK to have some really wonderful print magazines for kids. And print has been the key thing for their brands. It's a magazine that you get in the post, and your kids read it physically, and it's not on a screen, and it's something you can give to them at bedtime, and they can read about the world, and then they're wonderful. But they've been finding their digital voices too in this crisis. So the Week Junior, and I should say here, I write freelance for them, bit of a disclosure. They launched an online activity hub for parents, on the left there, with ideas of what you can do, internet activities, drawn from the mag's content. And they also launched their app with free issues for children at home. Again, something they would have done anyway, I'm sure, but they've seen as actually we can get the mag to people who maybe can't get the magazine because they're not going to Smith's or wherever. First News, newspaper for kids, has some remote learning resources and is making free copies available through schools digitally. So kids, again, can use that as part of their learning at home. The Phoenix Comic has got its Q Club, a monthly downloadable thing with lots of creative activities. And Anorak magazine, again, has free downloadables and printables. So all these magazines, they're doing hard work just getting the magazines done and printed and distributed and sent out to kids. But they're also finding these digital voices of reaching parents. And again, I think like the startups, some of the relationships here will maybe lead in the future those parents saying, yeah, actually, I would like to subscribe to that magazine because I feel good about them. And the final thing I'm going to talk about is mindfulness, following on from what Carlotta was saying. It's a big business for adults, but there's been some stuff happening around mindfulness and meditation and well-being for kids digitally as well. So CBeebies just added last week a Your Mindful Garden section to their Go Explore app. So it's voiced by Stephen Fry, and it's 3 daily activities around focus, creative, and calm as part of this app that's already kind of pretty focused, creative, and calm. More Sesame Street, Headspace, which is one of the big meditation apps, teamed up with Sesame Street to create monster meditations. So they're kind of 3-minute long animated shorts teaching kids how to meditate. And I think they're being made available on YouTube as well as Headspace. So there's different ways for adults to find them. And again, for Headspace, it's a way of showing parents what they have for kids. And the other big meditation app, Calm, has been working with Thomas and friends to create meditations and sleep stories based on their characters. So the trend here, I think, is that big mindfulness brand meets big children's brand. And I think there are a lot more deals to be done there because these companies want to do kids content, but they maybe don't have access to the characters to make that engaging. And also their business model is subscription. They want parents to keep paying. And one of the ways to do that is to give them stuff for their kids that makes them feel good. So there's a lot of stuff happening around mindfulness for kids and how can we partner apps and brands. And lastly, it's creating interest in the category of mindfulness for kids. So Moshi, which is an app offshoot from Moshi Monsters, focuses on sleep stories for kids, stories they listen to when they're going to sleep. Raised nearly 10 million quid in funding last month. And it already has 100,000 paying subscribers. There's value in this idea of stories your kids can listen to. But this situation has heightened the awareness of this category, the interest in it from parents and from investors alike. So that was a super quick through. As I mentioned, the link to everything I've done, I talked about in the document we're going to share afterwards. But that is me over. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to hand it back to David, I think.
We've got a couple questions that have come in from the chat, and I'm going to address the first one. We've got time for 2. I'll address them one very quickly, and then Carlotta will address another. From Kristen McGregor, any thoughts if COVID-19 related programming triggers fears for kids? Would love any thoughts on how we can ensure this content is helping versus hindering. I've actually been doing some interviews lately with reporters from the BBC Newsround and from the CBC News for Kids and asked them that very question. And their answer was to try to make sure that we're offering balance in content. You can't always do it in a single story, but across the range of your content, make sure that you're featuring the good things that are happening out there as well as the things that may be more fear-inducing, so that they see that there are, as Fred Rogers would say, there are the helpers out there. And now the question for Carlotta, Hannah Mosley, I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit. You've said, I'm often concerned that referencing or looking to youth-generated content for inspiration will read as disingenuous. As you mentioned, these kids are very astute. So Carlotta, any advice on how we can avoid, as children's producers, adopting the things that the influencers or social media stars use in ways that kids look at and say, no, that's not real. You're pandering to me.
Absolutely. I love the question. Thank you. I think that the answer is in understanding the why behind the audience engagement, not so much the content from the influencers. You're absolutely right. Disingenuous use of youth culture language will get you spotted right away. It's like a parent trying to use their children's slang. It just doesn't work, does it? What we aim to do in following and listening to the social media activity is to try to understand the why behind these communities that come together online for a very specific reason, then trying to understand the shared values that bring them together. It's a way of looking for a way to represent them and acknowledge them, not so much imitate them, and then bring the learnings back to our own values and our own objectives to achieve what we wanted to do in the first place. So it's a way of just understanding the values behind the shared communities, not just imitation. But thank you. It was a great question.
Good. And then one last question that's come in that I'm going to refer to Stu, and that's any good tips to exercise or move for kids?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I look stupid enough in a bike helmet. My kids have suddenly rediscovered cycling. They're really enjoying that because they get to laugh at me. But seriously, yeah, there's some good games. So Nintendo has a game called Ring Fit Adventure, which I've been using a lot in my family, where it's basically a workouts game with a game wrapped around it. That's really good. As a game, Just Dance 2019 or 2020, that's really good, a dancing game. I think there's also some of the apps that get people out and about. So Pokemon Go, the Harry Potter one, they've actually had to kind of come in and say, right, we're going to make you be able to play at home because you weren't allowed to walk. I think as the restrictions loosen on exercise, as we are able to go out with our kids for walks, those apps may come in handy too. But I think the thing that I found, honestly, is the screen time has been relaxed a lot. They're playing a lot more games on YouTube and stuff. So actually kicking them out the house and making them go for a walk, they've been surprisingly open for that. I think kids aren't just these screen time gluttons. I think they've had enough sometimes and they're happy to go for a walk or play football or get on their bikes. So weirdly, I think it's the old ways. But yeah, I think Ring Fit Adventure is the one I really recommend, because for a grown-up, it's a proper workout, but for kids, it's really fun and doesn't have to be, they can adapt to it.
And let me just add one, an American company called Go Noodle that has videos online that are designed to get kids up and moving. And at the risk of a commercial, Dubit designed an app for them that uses motion capture so that the things that kids do in front of their phone are used to influence how the game is played. And they're all designed to get kids up and moving. Good, well, thank you for the questions. Thank you also to those who've submitted content that we will add to our document that you'll be able to get from the CMC website.